Welcome to Legal Lines. My name is Tom O'Shea, the host of the show, and my guest today is Tom Shorb, an attorney with Stock and Leader. Our topic is Leave a Legacy. By the way, Tom was also once president of the York County Bar Association, as well as the York County Bar Foundation. Tom, let's start with the topic, Leave a Legacy. What is it?
Leave a Legacy is essentially a program that tries to, it's an awareness program that tries to make the public aware that they can leave a legacy long after they're gone through support of a nonprofit organization of their choice.
So you're talking mainly financial support?
Financial support, essentially, yes.
So a bequest to a charitable organization?
That is correct.
And what exactly does Leave a Legacy do as an institution?
How does it function?
Right.
There are really three major parts to Leave a Legacy, and one is the professional advisor component, and that is comprised of accountants, trust officers, financial advisors, insurance agents, attorneys. A second piece to this is the nonprofit organizations themselves, and thirdly is the general public. And essentially, the professional advisors are encouraged to be aware of charitable giving techniques, to be in a position to ask people if there's any charitable cause that they care about and they wish to perpetuate, and to enable them to better service their clients by expanding their knowledge of charitable giving. With the nonprofit institutions, the intent is to try to help them help themselves. And Leave a Legacy does this in various ways. Leave a Legacy provides articles for them to insert in their newsletters. It provides seminars that could be available to them talking about charitable techniques or possibly how to start a plan giving program. There are different speakers that would be available for them. So there's things that are available to them to help them help themselves. And the third piece of it is the general public. And the general public is reached through a variety of means. There are billboards that are occasionally throughout York County talking about Leave a Legacy. There are newspaper articles. There are brochures, radio ads. And the idea is to make the public aware that they can truly leave a legacy after they are gone. And the reality is everybody leaves a legacy upon their passing. And it can be intentionally and unintentionally. And the legacy is forged by the relationships that they develop during their lifetime, by their advancing causes that they believe in, by the manner in which they handle what life presents to them, and generally how they live their life. With Leave a Legacy and the Leave a Legacy program, people are encouraged to think about causes that they care about and to help them continue their work long after they're gone. So it is an intentional act on the part of somebody, and it's a very tangible way in which they can make a profound difference within the community.
Tom, I'd like to talk about the formation of Leave a Legacy in York County. I know you were instrumental in the development of Leave a Legacy. To begin with, is it something that is just local in York County, or is it something that exists nationwide?
Leave a Legacy started several decades ago elsewhere in the country, and right now there are many Leave a Legacy programs throughout the United States. York County's program started about 10 years ago, and I was just one piece of the collaborative effort that developed at that point in time. And the Leave a Legacy program needed a sponsor to get started. And the York County Bar Foundation, which is the charitable arm of the York County Bar Association, really stepped forward and provided leadership in getting this project started at that point in time.
And exactly what did the Bar Foundation do to get Leave a Legacy started?
It was the fiscal sponsor for Leave a Legacy. It provided offices within its facility for meetings of Leave a Legacy. It endorsed the efforts of Leave a Legacy, and it encouraged involvement in the community effort.
Okay, and if I could put in a little plug for the York County Bar Foundation, which, by the way, sponsors this show, could you tell us exactly what the charitable works the York County Bar Foundation does, in addition to getting Leave a Legacy off the ground?
There are really, I believe, three broad areas that the Bar Foundation focuses upon. And one of those areas is providing legal services for the poor, and trying to ensure that the poor within York County are afforded the opportunity of legal representation. Secondly, there are grants issued each year by the Bar Foundation to law-related organizations, nonprofit organizations, and causes to help them advance their work. And thirdly, there are several different public education programs that are provided by the Bar Foundation, one of which is Legal Lines. Another is the Speakers Bureau. And there are others. So they're the three primary components. But in addition to that, again, the Bar Foundation provided the leadership with the organization of Leave a Legacy. Right now, it's providing the leadership with regard to the Truancy Prevention Initiative, which has really taken hold here in York County and has provided sponsorship for that effort.
I know our topic is Leave a Legacy, but if you could elaborate more on the Truancy Prevention Initiative, I think that's an important project that is really, as I see it, is developing through the Bar Foundation in a similar pattern to the way Leave a Legacy was started by the Bar Foundation.
Yes, and the Truancy Prevention Initiative is patterned on the Leave a Legacy program as far as organization and how it's set up. This is an effort that was started over 10 years ago by Judge Shorb here in York County to try to address the enormous problem of truancy. And it's a proven fact that truancy leads to dropouts. Dropouts leads, when children drop out of school, it leads to a multitude of problems. And the focus of the Truancy Prevention Initiative is to try to just that, prevent truancy, and to work in a very collaborative way with a lot of different stakeholders, like the schools, the medical community, the business community, the education community, the legal community, and to work together to try to address this problem that creates huge problems throughout the community.
And the York County Bar Foundation, similar to what happened with Leave a Legacy, is providing the office space, some of the office equipment, if you will, as well as basically our 501(c) status initially to start the organization as a nonprofit.
That's absolutely correct.
All of that was done when Leave a Legacy was formed. And as I understand it, just like with the Truancy Initiative now, where you're talking about educators being involved, counselors being involved, et cetera, with Leave a Legacy, it's not just a bunch of lawyers sitting around talking about let's get people to write new wills.
That's right.
Okay? We're also talking about financial advisors. We're talking about trust officers at banks. We're talking about the charities themselves benefiting from this program.
That's right. The reality is so much more can be accomplished when there are partnerships where different groups work together toward a common goal. That was the idea behind Leave a Legacy here in York County, and it's the idea behind the Truancy Prevention Initiative also here in York County. And I would add, with regard to the Leave a Legacy program, the York County Bar Foundation was the first bar foundation in the country to really be a fiscal sponsor for a Leave a Legacy program. And it was recognized and it was appreciated and continues to be appreciated.
I think that is something important to point out. In most other communities, the initiative for starting Leave a Legacy came from other groups, whether it be the charities or estate planners. But in your county, our Leave a Legacy was really the idea of the Bar Foundation, and I believe it was under your leadership at the time when you were president that this began.
Well, there were a lot of people that were involved with
this.
this.
Being modest here, Tom. I know you were very instrumental in getting it started and have been very active in it throughout the whole process, including right through today, and we appreciate that. With respect to Leave a Legacy, I want to, some of the things that you told me before we began today's taping included the fact that this is not just for rich people.
That's right.
This isn't something that, gee, you have to have a certain dollar amount to get involved in making a bequest. Anybody can make a donation to charity.
Right.
Okay, and so can you give some examples of what people of average means would be able to do?
Well, I think what you mentioned there is a very important concept, that everybody and anybody can be a philanthropist. And frankly, the smallest support, charitable monetary support to a nonprofit organization does make a difference. And a small example of how this can happen, where somebody, say, gives $100 to a charity every year, and upon their passing, then that contribution stops and it disappears. What if that person were to set up their plan in a way that they would provide upon their death a sum such as $2,500 or some other amount would be put in place to provide that the income or a certain return on that sum would be paid to the charity in perpetuity? And it could be structured in such a way with such an amount that the real dollars would continue in effect in perpetuity. So in effect, $100 would be given each year forever and ever for that charity. And that type of thing can happen, it does happen, and it happens every day.
And you would be able to explain to people how they can establish such a plan as part of their estate planning.
Yes. And sometimes there's a conception that all charitable giving techniques, what is often called plan giving, has to be complicated. It doesn't need to be. Certainly there are complex techniques and vehicles that are available to make charitable gifts. But additionally, there are a lot of simple ways that can be utilized, such as the example I just gave. It's commonly referred to as endowing your annual gift. So,
Tom, we'll get to exactly some of these techniques in our second segment of our show. We need to break right now. This is Legal Lines. Thank you. Welcome back to Legal Lines. My name is Tom O'Shea, the host of the show, and my guest is Tom Shorb, an attorney with Stock and Leader, and today we're talking about Leave a Legacy. And one thing that I'd like to point out that we didn't cover in the first segment, Tom, is that Leave a Legacy is not promoting any particular charity. Am I correct?
That's correct. There's no particular charity that's endorsed. The idea is to have the public, to have the professional advisors, and others aware of what can be accomplished through charitable giving. And there's no particular charity that is promoted, is correct.
And a charity could include any type of nonprofit organization as well as a religious institution.
Absolutely.
Someone's church, for example.
It could be a church, it could be an educational charity, it could be something in the arts community, it could be human services, any number of things. There are literally hundreds of charities within York County.
Okay, now, how does someone go about leaving a legacy?
Well, the first thing I think is for that person to think about causes that they care about. What has been important in their lives? What has made a difference in their lives? What have they promoted? What have they supported? What has helped perhaps their family? What do they think, what charity do they believe does important work within the community? So it's more of a personal decision as to what they believe is important within the community as far as a nonprofit corporation. There are, again, literally hundreds of charities within York County. They all do good work, but different people have different causes that they care particularly about. That, I think, is the first step. I think a second very good step would be for that individual to speak to that nonprofit and to talk with them, perhaps in a very general way, as to how they would like to help their cause, how they would like to advance what they are doing. And they may discover that there would be a certain area within that nonprofit that they could help. If it's a church, it could be an organ fund. If it's a school, it could be for a scholarship. It could be any number of things. But I think to have that conversation with the charity, with the nonprofit organization, can be very beneficial. Of course, at times, people don't want to do that. They want to do it very quietly, and they want to help the organization. They don't want the recognition, and they want to do it pretty much on their own terms. So a second avenue would be to speak to the nonprofit, which very often is a good thing to do. And then the third step would be to speak to their professional advisor. If they work with an accountant, a trust officer, a financial advisor, insurance agent, attorney, to talk with them and to speak with them about what can be accomplished. And there can be very tax advantage techniques that can be utilized that the professional advisor could advise them about.
I want to talk about some of those techniques. Before the break, you were talking about a technique where someone could basically set up a fund where gifts could be given in perpetuity, so that basically the fund would generate enough income to constantly make annual gifts to an organization.
Yes.
And you indicated that that could be done for relatively a modest amount of money. It's not something that only millionaires can set up.
Right.
How does someone go about establishing something that could leave an annual gift in perpetuity?
Well, I think what they should do is speak to their professional advisor and also speak to the charity. It would be the best method in which to carry that out. And to speak to the professional advisor as to what their intent is, what they wish to accomplish, what their goals are. And then the professional advisor should be in a position to advise them how to accomplish their goals.
I think one gift that I hear frequently for gifts that are established in perpetuity would be scholarship funds.
Mm-hmm.
It would be like the John Smith Memorial Scholarship Fund for the alma mater that John Smith went to, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And a certain dollar amount would be established, and each year that money would be managed, and the income that it would generate would be able to fund a scholarship.
That's right. And there are literally hundreds of scholarship funds that exist throughout York County, if not more, by people who had that same intention that you're speaking about. People who wanted to or want to set up a fund in memory perhaps of a family member or a friend, or maybe they just believe in the importance of education, and maybe education for a very specific purpose.
Okay. And I think you also said there could be some tax advantages if you do proper planning. Can you give us an example of how you can do proper planning to get some tax advantages with respect to your charitable giving?
Well, there are numerous methods in which to accomplish that. One way could be if somebody has a gift that they want to make in their will to charity, and they have a IRA account. Perhaps if they give a portion of that IRA to charity and designate the charity as the beneficiary of that IRA, the charity, when it receives that portion of the IRA, will not pay any income tax. There would be no federal income tax, nor would there be any Pennsylvania inheritance tax or federal estate tax. Whereas, say, if they have that same gift in their will to charity, there would be no inheritance tax or federal estate tax. But then when the IRA would go, say, to a family member, there's still that income tax consequence. So it's a matter of determining where would be the best place to make a gift of that asset that would carry income tax consequences. And it requires some analysis. And accountants are a tremendous resource in this area. But there are things like that that the professional advisors need to examine.
And that's why you would go to the professional advisor as opposed to just saying to your attorney, for example, well, put a clause in my will that I leave X amount of dollars to my church.
Yeah.
Your advisor might say to you, well, you have, if you want to leave $10,000 to your church, for example, you have $50,000 in an IRA.
Yeah.
If your children were to get that IRA, they're going to have to pay the income tax that the IRA would need to pay when you withdrew it from an IRA.
Exactly.
Okay, whereas if you gave the $10,000 from the IRA to the church as a nonprofit, as a charity, does not have to pay any income tax, and therefore that money goes to the church, and you can leave then the same amount of money to your children that you were intending to leave, but it will not be subject to the income tax, although it may be subject to the inheritance tax in Pennsylvania.
That's correct.
Okay, so that in that example might save, if someone's in a 33% tax bracket, it might save 33% of whatever the amount of the gift was with the other asset that the children of the decedent would otherwise have had to pay.
Absolutely correct.
So
and it just requires some analysis and some examination as to what the best way is to accomplish that.
And I think something similar to that can be done if someone owns a lot of stock that has a low basis where there would have been a great deal of capital gain by gifting the stock to the charity.
A simple example of that would be if somebody has a stock that they bought, say, many years ago for $1 that is now worth $10. If they sell that stock, they have a $9 gain that they need to report for income tax purposes, and they have to pay tax on that gain. If they take that stock that is now worth $10 and they give it to charity, the charity would then sell the stock. The charity does not pay income tax, and so they have given that $10 to the charity. The charity does not pay income tax, the individual does not pay income tax, and the individual is credited for a $10 gift to charity.
And
it's a simple technique.
And that's a very good technique that people not only can use in their estate planning, but they can also use in their lifetime. And I think one thing that we also discussed prior to the show is that leave a legacy isn't entirely about estate planning for somebody who is dead or when they die, but you can leave a legacy while you're still living.
Yes.
And is that promoted?
Sure. And there's a lot of things that are available for somebody to make a gift during their lifetime where, in effect, everybody wins but the taxing authorities. And an example would be a charitable gift annuity that are very popular nowadays. And essentially and simply, it is a mechanism where somebody can make a gift, get an income tax deduction, retain an income from that asset for their life, and then upon their passing, the balance in that account would go to charity. It can be absolutely tremendous technique to utilize.
And here again, that's why it's important to meet with the proper experts, the financial planners, the attorneys, the accountants, who can basically show how your gifts to charity can work best for you.
And a nice feature to that, to a lifetime gift, is the person making the gift can see what's happening with their gift. They can see how it will benefit the charity. When somebody passes away, they don't really know. They can provide that the fund would be used upon their death for a specific purpose, but they can be involved in a more concrete way by making the gift during their lifetime.
Tom, we have about a minute remaining. You gave me some statistics before about how charitable the people of York County are, and we are a very charitable community.
Yeah.
Could you repeat those statistics for our viewers?
Well, and I think it's fairly well known that York County is a very philanthropic community, and it's a very giving community. And it is approximately 75% of the population support charitable organizations during their lifetime. But upon death, through estate plans, it's roughly 10% that support those same charities. So once again, it comes back to leave a legacy where somebody can continue that support.
Tom, we have about 2
death.
seconds left, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I thank you for being our guest. Our
You're
guest
welcome.
was Tom Shorb, speaking about Leave a Legacy. This is Legal Line. Thank you.